Hey there, survivor. If you can hear this, it means you're still alive. This is Jack's Nightmares, and this is your next story. The ferry comes into view in the middle of the day, a white block on the horizon that does not belong there. I am paddling my ugly little plastic kayak along the broken coastline, same as most days now, hugging the shallows and staying close enough to jump out and run if anything goes wrong. The water is calm, the wind is low. This stretch of beach has already been picked clean of cars and bodies. I know every burned house and overturned fishing boat along here. There is not supposed to be a ferry. At first I think my eyes are playing tricks on me. Then the thing turns a little with the swell, and I see the painted stripe near the waterline and the upper deck railings. It is not at the dock. It is a few hundred yards off the coast, drifting at a lazy angle, engines silent. No horn, no loudspeaker, no smoke from any stack. I stop paddling and let the kayak glide. My arms are tired from another pointless day of scavenging empty houses for anything useful. I watch the ferry and listen. I hear nothing but the small slap of water on plastic and a gull calling somewhere behind me. No gunshots, no people, no engines. Even from here, the ferry feels wrong, too quiet, too still. A vessel that size should have noise, motion, people yelling at each other about docking lines or schedules or parking. Now it just drifts, a dead building on the water. My first thought is that it is a trap. My second thought is that it is full of food, water, and maybe a bed that is not moldy. I sit there with the paddle across my knees and argue with myself in my head for a while. Go for it and maybe die. Stay here and keep chewing stale crackers from looted vending machines until I die anyway. That sort of calculation has become normal. I think of the last group I was in, all of us arguing over whether to try for the next town or stay put, and how most of us ended up walking in circles until the infected cornered us at a supermarket loading dock. I think of how I froze when the truck arrived that day and missed my chance to climb on. Everyone who made it onto that truck might be dead already. I still hate that I did nothing, that I let fear make the choice for me. Now I look at the ferry and feel the same weight. I do not want to repeat that moment, so I breathe once, steady, and say out loud, "All right, we do this." Talking out loud is normal for me now. It keeps things ordered in my head. I angle the kayak toward the ferry. The bow cuts through the water with a small hiss. As I get closer, the hull looms higher, a tall wall of metal that rises from the sea. Paint is peeling around the waterline where waves have chewed at it. Rust streaks run down from bolts and portholes. Near the stern, I see a lowered ladder bolted to the side, the bottom section bent and twisted. That is my way in, unless I want to try the vehicle ramp, which hangs half open and dips close to the water, dark and suspicious. I circle slowly, keeping a few arm lengths between the kayak and the hull. I peer up at the rails, squinting. No figures, no movement. A few flags hang limp, faded. One hangs at a torn angle. I listen hard. Nothing. That silence presses in on my ears. I tie the kayak to one of the ferry's side rings with a frayed rope I keep coiled at my feet. I double knot it and tug on it twice. I do not want to lose the kayak. It has been my one useful friend for weeks. Then I look down through the water and my gut clenches. Something pale sways below me. A face rolls just under the surface, skin white and wrinkled from long soaking, eyes milky, mouth open. A jacket sleeve catches on some invisible edge on the hull, then pulls free and the body bumps against the side of my kayak. Fingers trail, reaching. It does not groan. Its vocal cords are probably swollen or torn or filled with water. It just moves in slow circles, drawn by current and the shape of the hull. I push off the corpse with the paddle. The body turns, arms spreading. I give it a name in my head without meaning to. Drifter. That is what these are. The ones the tide owns now. I do not like the idea of those arms grabbing my ankle when I go for the ladder, but there is no other option. I pull the paddle into the kayak and crouch, testing my leg strength. My hands are damp. I wipe them on my pants, grip the lower twisted rung of the ladder, and wait for the ferry to lift on a small swell so I can step up. When the water rises, I haul myself onto the first rung and climb as quick as I can, boots slipping once. The metal is slick with growth. My shoulders burn, but I do not stop until I am on the lowest side deck, breathing through my mouth to avoid the mix of salt and rot in the air. I lie there for a few seconds, chest pressed into cold metal, and listen. Water below. Distant gull. Nothing else. No shuffle of feet. No dragging limbs on deck. No human voices. I push myself up to a crouch and take my first full look at the ferry from on board. The deck is a mess. A few plastic chairs lie on their sides. Paper cups and wrappers cling to the corners. The glass of a nearby emergency box is cracked, and there is a red-handled machete inside, strapped on molded plastic. My attention locks on that box. I move toward it, keeping low, checking each doorway and stairwell as I pass. The nearest door is closed. A map of the route is bolted to the wall beside it, dotted line from one city to another. I do not need geography right now. I need that blade. I grip the handle of my small crowbar, raise it, and smack the glass. The only sound is the sharp crack and the rattle of fragments bouncing inside the box. I freeze and listen. Still nothing. I reach through, undo the little strap, and pull the machete out. The weight in my hand is a relief. It is not perfect. The edge is dull in spots, but the blade is solid. The rubber handle fits my grip better than the old broken shovel I have been carrying around since the supermarket disaster. I test a swing in the air. My shoulder reminds me I am not 20 anymore. I do not care. A good blade is worth the ache. Thank you, I murmur toward the empty box. Old habit. Thank the object. Thank the space. Thank the people who are probably long gone. It is a silly ritual, but it steadies me. I walk along the rail and look down. The kayak bumps lightly against the hull, still tethered. The drifter has drifted a little away, turning slowly. I keep the image in my head as a warning. Do not fall in. Those arms will close fast when flesh passes within reach. I have seen it before near the pier a month back, when a man thought the water was safer than the street and ended up dragged under by 3 of them, all swollen and pale, hands gripping his clothes. He did not come back up. All right, ferry first, memories later. I move inland from the rail and find a door that leads to the stairwell up. The handle is stiff but not locked. I pull it slowly, keeping the machete ready, and peer into the dim interior. The stairwell smells stale. Old coffee, sweat, and something sour just under that. No fresh corpse smell, which is good. That smell never fades. It just changes. I climb to the upper deck, watching each landing before I step off. No infected wait there with jaws open. No shoes sticking out from behind vending machines. On the top passenger deck, wide glass windows ring the lounge. Some are cracked, some smeared. Inside I see tables, chairs, a snack counter and luggage. There are suitcases everywhere, stacked near one wall, scattered across seats, jammed in corners. Big wheeled ones, little duffel bags, backpacks. A few grocery bags stuffed with emergency food. So that rumor was true in some form. People ran for ferries with everything they could carry. Somewhere between dock and ramp, it turned into chaos and all of this was left behind. The sight hits me in the chest in a strange way. Every bag means someone, a plan, a panic decision in a living room or bedroom. What to take when the news says leave now. Clothes, family photos, medications, snacks. All that packed weight is still here, but the people are gone. For a few seconds, I just stand at the lounge doorway, machete hanging at my side, and listen. The room is silent. A flyer flutters a bit from the air leaking through a cracked window. That is it. No shuffle, no breathing, no groans. I step inside. The carpet is stained with spilled drinks and tracked dirt. My boots leave faint marks in the dust. I walk straight to the snack counter. The glass case is empty. Shelves bare except for a busted bag of chips ripped open and ants crawling around the crumbs. I am too late for the easy calories. That was predictable. The register drawers are pried open and empty. I test one anyway and feel something catch. I shift my angle and pull again. A small black pistol slides from the gap and lands on the counter with a dull clack. I jerk back on instinct, then freeze and stare at it. It is a compact 9mm. The slide is in place. Magazine inserted. No visible rust yet. Someone stashed it there, probably a staff member who did not want to get caught with a weapon while on duty. I reach for it slowly. The grip fits my hand better than my old memory of the one time I fired a rental at a range. I press the magazine release. It drops into my palm. Not empty. I count the rounds by touch. Not many, but enough to matter. I push the magazine back in with a click. "Thank you again," I whisper to no one. Machete and pistol. That covers close and short range. I tuck the pistol at the back of my waistband, under my jacket. It digs into my lower spine, but I can live with that. The hunger that has been sitting in my stomach all morning pushes me toward the suitcases. I fight it for a minute. I do not want to touch these bags. It feels wrong. Those people might have died on the dock. They might have made it somewhere else and lost everything. If I take from them, nobody complains, but my conscience stirs. Then my dry mouth reminds me I have half a bottle of water left and the last of my bread went moldy yesterday. I kneel by a medium-sized suitcase with a broken handle. It is scuffed and taped in places. Practical. I flip it upright and test the weight. Moderately heavy. Not books. Not all clothes. I pop the latches with the crowbar and lift the lid. Inside, I see rolled shirts, socks, a pair of jeans, and a toiletry kit. Under those, a hard plastic case. My heart rate picks up. I set the clothes aside and open the case. Rows of blister packs look up at me. Medicine. I read the labels. Blood pressure. Antidepressant. One broad-spectrum antibiotic. Painkillers. "Whoever you were, I am sorry," I say. "I will make this count." I take the antibiotic and painkillers. I leave the others. Someone else might need them one day. That thought is half hope, half habit. I try another bag. This one is lighter, soft-sided. Inside is a child's jacket, a stuffed toy with one eye torn off, and snack packs of dried fruit and nuts. The smell of clean fabric and sugar hits my nose. I close my eyes, swallow, and put the toy back carefully. I take the food and a small water bottle and whisper another thanks. 2 bags in, and already I feel the strain of it. If I keep going fast, I will fall into a haze and start reading every old letter and staring at every family photo. That will get me killed. So I set a rule. 2 bags, then sweep the area. 2 more, then sweep again. Always keep moving. Always check doors. On my first sweep around the lounge, I find the first real mark of trouble. At the far side near the corridor, a wide double door leads into the cabin hallway. The handle has a snapped plastic tie on it. Someone had looped it to keep people out or in. It did not hold. There is a thin brown smear on the lower metal latch. I do not need to sniff it or touch it to know what it is. It is old, dry, and flaked in places. I flatten myself against the wall beside the door and listen with my ear near the seam. Nothing at first, just the faint hum of the ferry's structure settling in the water. Then something else, so faint I almost miss it. A slow scrape, like a shoe shifting on carpet. My hand tightens on the machete. I step back, away from the door, and mark a mental line there. Behind those doors is the cabin deck. That is where people would have holed up. That is where the infection usually spreads in closed spaces. I am not ready for that yet. I dig into my backpack and pull out a piece of chalk I lifted from a ruined classroom weeks ago. I draw a large X on the lounge side of the door and write in letters under it. Do not open. It is for me, not for anyone else. Future me is forgetful sometimes when food or curiosity takes over. Present me does him a favor. I move to the stairwell again and climb up toward the bridge. The walls up here have framed safety posters and faded ads. One has a smiling couple on the deck with bright drinks in their hands. I glance away. That kind of image does more harm than good now. At the top, a heavy door leads to the bridge. I try the handle. It opens with a low creak. My stomach tightens again. I push the door open inch by inch, machete raised, eyes scanning for movement. The bridge is empty. Chairs knocked a little sideways. A few cups near the control panel, maps on a table. Windows wrap around the front and sides, giving a wide view of sea and distant coast. The sight of that open water and unfriendly shoreline makes me feel very small in a very large space. I step in and close the door behind me. Bigger problem now. Is this ferry dead in the water, or can I move it? If I can move it, I can control its distance from shore and maybe avoid more drifters. Plus, being adrift like this is a beacon for the kind of armed group that might decide it belongs to them. I would rather not run into that right away. I run my fingers over the controls with care. There are switches, levers, and labeled panels. I do not understand most of it, but I know the basics. Throttle, steering, power. The main wheel is centered. The key is still in place. That feels like someone left mid-shift and never returned. I stand there and argue with myself again. If I turn that key, I might make enough noise to wake anything asleep inside the ferry or on deck. If I do nothing, I stay a drifting target. The water outside is calm now, but storms come fast. A storm could spin this thing straight into rocks. All right, small test. I grip the key and turn it one notch. The panel lights flicker, some red, some green. A low hum starts under my feet. I wait. No heavy engine roar yet. Just the electronics waking up. I listen. No answering groans. No banging on doors. I turn the key fully. The ferry shudders. Somewhere deep below, engines cough, catch, and settle into a low churn. The vibration travels up through the metal floor into my legs. The sound feels enormous in this quiet world. I grit my teeth and scan the windows for new movement. None yet. I put a hand on the wheel and test it gently. Turning to the right feels smooth. Turning to the left meets sudden resistance, a hard block. I do not force it. Forcing mechanical things when I do not know what is wrong usually breaks them worse. I center the wheel again and stare out at the water. So she only turns one way. That is a problem for later. For now, I nudge the throttle ahead just a little. The ferry responds with a slight forward push and a slow rightward turn. My kayak swings behind us on the rope, tugging like a small animal as we move. My eyes flick from the panel to the windows. Land backs away, then slides left as the ferry arcs. I ease the throttle back and cut the engines again. The rumble fades. Silence rushes back in. All right, I say quietly. You move, I move you. We can work with that. The word just slips out. You, not it. I feel a flush of embarrassment even though no one is here to see me talk to metal and wires. I clear my throat. You need a name, I tell the empty bridge, since it is just us up here. I look at the brass nameplate near the helm. It has the company logo and some long official code. None of that appeals to me. My mind jumps to a memory instead. My one real attempt to audition for something. A walking role in a small theater production in the city. I spent weeks memorizing a speech and still flubbed it as soon as I stepped on stage. The female lead in that play was named Katarina. I watched her deliver lines with this calm strength I always wished I had. Katarina, I say. It feels strange. Then right. All right. You are Katarina now. Try not to kill me. I let the moment sit, then get back to work. Names do not keep anyone fed. The first priority on a new shelter is always the same now. Food, water, secure sleeping spot, clear exits, weapons set. The ferry is better than an abandoned house only if I understand its layout. I cannot afford to treat it like a hotel. I sweep the rest of the upper deck, room by room, offices, a radio room with panels dark and silent, old sticky notes still on the desk with phone numbers that probably do not exist anymore. I find a closet with life jackets, another with cleaning supplies. No bodies yet, no more weapons either. When I work my way down to the second passenger deck, the air feels heavier. The corridor is lined with cabin doors, each with a small metal number. Some are cracked open, some are locked. The carpet here is stained in patches. I see a smear near one door where something was dragged. That door is slightly bent at the frame. My grip on the machete tightens again. I decide on a system. I will not open closed cabins today. Not yet. I will clear what is already open, mark all others, then loop back when I have more energy and better knowledge of the exits. I dig out the chalk again and draw symbols on each door as I move. A circle for checked and clear, a triangle for unknown, a cross for clear danger. First open cabin. Bed unmade. Small television hanging on the wall. Suitcase on the floor half unpacked. Bathroom door ajar. I tap it with the machete tip and push it wider. Empty. I open the suitcase. Clothes. A charger for a phone model that no longer matters. 2 packs of dried noodles. I take the noodles and make another quiet promise in my head to the owner. Second. Open cabin. No luggage, just a jacket on the bed and a half-drank bottle of water on the nightstand. I sniff the water. No smell. I take it. Then I notice a smear on the doorframe at shoulder height. It is dark and old, crusted. I mark the door with a cross and shut it. I do not know what happened here, and I do not need to stand in this room longer. By the time I reach the far end of the corridor, sweat runs down my back under my jacket. My tongue sticks to the roof of my mouth. I want to sit down, but the itch of unease keeps me moving. In one of the last cabins I open, I find a fresh gift. A small backpack wedged near the bed. Inside are 2 flashlights. One cheap plastic and one heavier aluminum. Both have batteries. Both turn on. The beam from the better one cuts through the dim cabin with clean white light. I nearly laugh. I keep the heavier flashlight on my belt and tuck the other into my pack. Light means options. Options mean survival. I end up back in the lounge by late afternoon. The sun outside is lower, the light through the windows warmer and softer. The sea is still calm. I open a tin of noodles using my knife, pour some water into a mug I found behind the counter, and eat them dry. They stick in my throat, but that is still better than going to sleep hungry. As I eat, I talk to myself again. I go over what I have seen. I list it out in my mind, and sometimes aloud. Drifters in the water, unknown number of infected below, locked cabins with possible dormant infected, luggage with supplies, engines that work, steering that only favors one direction. Could be worse, I tell the empty tables. Could be a dock warehouse with no door and 10 infected inside. When darkness starts to creep in at the edges of the windows, I make my first real mistake. I stay in the lounge too long. Night on the water is different from night on land. On land, there is always some distant sound, infected dragging along pavement, wind through trash. Somewhere a generator still running for a group that has not figured out that noise is a beacon. On the water, once the birds settle, sound falls off a cliff. All that is left is the lap of water against the hull, the occasional creak, and your own breathing. I stretch out on a row of chairs near the window, machete within reach, pistol under my jacket, and close my eyes. My body is tired in that deep way that feels like it sits in the bones. Sleep comes faster than it should. I do not know what wakes me up. It is not a dream. It is not a light. It is a sound, but not loud. Something between a scrape and a tap, repeating, with long pauses in between. I stay still and let my eyes adjust to the darkness. The emergency lights in the ceiling glow dull orange, powered by some limited battery system. Outside the windows, the world is black. There it is again. Tap, scrape, then silence. It is coming from below the lounge, not far, maybe the next deck down. I slide off the chairs quietly, grip the machete, and move toward the stairwell on the balls of my feet. Every step sounds too loud in my own ears. At the landing, I pause and listen. Another tap. Then a dragging sound down the corridor of cabins. That slow, weighty slide that means something is stumbling and catching on the walls. I angle my light downward and click it on for a split second, then off. Just enough to see there is nothing in the stairwell yet. The noise is still further away, This is the real test. I knew the infected were likely sealed somewhere inside this ferry. I saw the old blood and the bent frames. Now they are moving. Maybe the vibration of the engines earlier woke them. Maybe my footsteps did. Maybe they heard my stupid muttered commentary and followed the sound. It does not matter. They are up now. I retreat up the stairs and close the lounge door behind me. Then I drag 2 luggage carts across the entrance and jam them in place. Wheels clatter and locks clink. The tapping sound below pauses. I stand there in the dim orange light with both hands on the carts and wait to see if anything hits the door. 1 minute, 2, nothing. Sleep is gone now. I stay awake the rest of the night, sitting in a chair facing the door, flashlight ready, pistol within reach. Every small creak reminds me that I am on a giant metal box with unknown threats sharing the same shell. At some point near dawn, when the windows begin to show a faint grey, I catch myself nodding and jerk upright again. My neck aches. Morning light finally pushes through. I stand and stretch, joints popping. The carts stay in place while I make another quick circuit of the lounge, peeking out through the glass to check the horizon. The ferry has drifted during the night. Land is still there, but the angle changed. It is a little closer than I want. "All right, Katarina," I say. "Time to move you away from the neighbors." I push the carts aside just enough to slip through the door, then block them again behind me once I am in the stairwell. I move quiet and slow. The corridor below is brighter now, with daylight leaking from some cabin windows. I step down and stop at the last step. I spot the first stumbler at the far end of the hallway. It stands near a cabin door, back turned, shoulders hunched. Clothes cling to it in torn strips. Hair hangs in damp clumps. One hand taps the wall with a weak rhythm, over and over, as if some old habit is stuck in muscle memory. Each tap matches the sound from the night. It does not see me yet. Its head tilts slightly, like it is listening for something. I know from hard experience that if I make a loud sound, or shine a light on it, that head will snap around fast and the noise will draw more from behind doors. So I back up one step at a time until the rail hides me. Then I climb to the next deck and head instead for the bridge. On the bridge I turn the key. Engines come alive. I nudge the throttle forward and spin the wheel gently to the right. The ferry responds, sliding across the water. I keep the speed low. I do not want to throw any infected off balance enough that they slam into doors and unlock new threats. I just need to pull the ferry back out away from the shore. The coastline drifts apart in the windows. I see no smoke from camps, no line of cars, just a strip of land with abandoned houses and a narrow road. As we pass, something flashes near one of the old piers. I squint and see a person standing there with a rifle raised. I duck instinctively, but not fast enough. A shot cracks. Glass near my head bursts outward. I drop flat behind the console. The engines hum. My ears ring. I stay on the floor and edge one hand up to cut the throttle. The ferry coasts. For a moment, all I hear is the whine in my ears and the buzz of lights. No second shot. When I risk a glance, the figure on the pier is smaller in the distance. Probably just wanted to warn off anyone who might try to dock. Given what runs around on land now, I cannot even blame that reaction. "Message received," I mutter. "We keep our distance." The broken window lets in a fresh stream of cold air and salt. Tiny shards of glass litter the console and floor. I brush them aside carefully. I mark that pier in my mind as a place to avoid. There are still people out there, and they are tired and on edge, same as me. I keep the ferry at a slow drift parallel to the coast, far enough out to escape easy gunfire. The rudder only obeys to the right, so any course correction takes patience. I have to oversteer, then cut engines, then let the hull swing around gradually. It is like trying to steer a shopping cart with one front wheel stuck, except the cart weighs thousands of tons and lives are involved. Once I am satisfied with the distance, I kill the engines again and sit in the captain's chair for a minute. The adrenaline from the shot bleeds off, leaving my muscles shaky. I rub my face and force my mind back to the next job. There is always a next job now. Food, water, luggage, infected. I spend the next few hours working through more bags in the lounge, sticking to my rule of short bursts between sweeps. I find a set of clean socks that do not have holes, a packet of instant coffee, a small power bank for a phone. I test it by plugging in my old dead phone out of habit. The screen flickers once, then dies again. Not much charge left in the bank, but I can use it for the flashlights in a pinch. I also find a notebook, the kind with a spiral binding, pages half filled with handwritten lists and little sketches of outfits. Some aspiring fashion student maybe. I close it without reading too much and take it to the bridge later to use for maps and system notes. I write down what I am learning about Katarina, steering issue, engine response time, estimated fuel gauge reading. I am not an engineer, but I can at least track patterns. Mid-afternoon, I know I have pushed my luck enough. The infected in the cabins are quiet again for now, but I have no illusion that they are gone. They sit in there in that half state, waiting for the next thing that rattles their nerves and wakes whatever is left in their brains. I need a better barrier between them and my sleeping spot. So I turn the lounge itself into a kind of inner safe zone. I drag luggage racks, tables, and a few heavy benches against the main door into the stairwell. I fasten straps from suitcases around them and through the handles, tying knots until my fingers cramp. It will not stop a large group forever, but it will slow them. Noise will give me time to grab weapons and decide which way to run. At the far end of the lounge, there is a service door that leads to a small side deck. I clear that too, make sure the latch works, and grease it with cooking oil from the snack counter so it opens without squealing. That becomes my backup escape route. It occurs to me as I work that I am treating this space the same way I treated warehouse aisles for 20 years. Walk the space, learn the layout, block the wrong paths, keep exits clear. Back then, it was forklifts and shipping pallets instead of infected and suitcases. Same approach, different stakes. When I finish the barricades, sweat drips from my hairline. My shoulders ache. My stomach complains. I grab one of the nut packs from earlier, chew slowly, and drink a measured sip of water. I keep talking to myself in short mutters, partly to stay alert, partly because if I stop, silence will settle on my shoulders and feel twice as heavy. As the second night closes in, the ferry shifts on the waves in a new way. A low swell rolls under the hull every few minutes, making the deck sway gently. The windows darken again. I switch to flashlight light and make one last pass by the stairwell door, pressing my ear to a small gap. This time I hear breathing, not steady human breathing, short, broken drags, with wetness in them. A hand slaps the other side of the door once, then slides down. Another slaps beside it. I back away with each sound, until my waistband hits a table. "All right," I say under my breath. Stumblers down there. Cabin quiet, still locked. We hold this line. I sit with my back against the window where I can see both the door and the emergency exit. Pistol is in my lap. Machete leans against my knee. Outside the glass, small whitecaps appear as the swell grows. The sky is thick with low cloud. The ferry creaks more now, a long, slow groan every time the hull rides up and down. It does not take long for that motion to shake loose trouble. A sudden hard lurch rocks the ferry, harder than the ones before. Somewhere below, something heavy slams into metal. The sound rattles up through the structure. I hear a faint, sharp crack, then a thud, then the broken rhythm of many footsteps in a tight space. I stand up before my brain fully catches up. I flick the safety off the pistol and point it at the stairwell door. The first hit comes a few seconds later. A shoulder slams into the door from the other side. The luggage racks shudder. The door bows inward a little, then snaps back. A low groan comes with the next hit. More hands join in. The sound thickens. Knuckles on metal, bone on wood, shirts dragging on paint. I can picture them in my head, clustered on the landing, drawn by the noises of the swell and the earlier engine rumble. Cabin doors must have shaken in their frames in the storm swell. Some latches gave way. That cluster of cabin quiet is not quiet anymore. The door trembles under the assault. The racks slide an inch. One of the straps loosens. I curse under my breath and move to reinforce it, looping another strap through and yanking it tight. One of the hands slaps near my fingers. I jump back. A crack appears in the lower corner of the door frame where the metal meets the wall. The third or fourth impact widens it. I see one grey fingertip push through the gap. Nail split and bent. That sight spikes something cold in my throat. I change tactics. I cannot let them break that door completely. If they all swarm into the lounge at once, I will not be able to hold them. So I move to the side and pick my angle, pistol aimed at the upper half of the door. I wait for the next big hit and fire one shot through the thinner paneling, near where I guess a head might be. The sound is deafening in the enclosed space. My ears ring. The recoil pushes back into my wrist. On the other side of the door, something heavy drops. Some of the pounding stops. A wet gargling sound replaces it briefly, then fades. The others do not give up. They continue to push, but with one less body, the rhythm changes. I wait again, then fire another round through the door. Lower this time, where a chest might be. The impact thuds on the other side. Another body drops. Feet shift. For a moment, the pressure on the door lightens. I use that moment to drag an even heavier bench against the barricade and wedge its legs into grooves in the floor. My arms shake with the effort. Sweat runs into my eyes. I blink it away and keep working. Little by little, the pounding slows. The infected on the other side do not get tired in a normal way, but when there is no immediate path to food, they tend to drift, wander, bump into walls and each other, lose focus. The storm swell helps. Every rocking motion throws off their balance. They stumble back, then forward again. Those motions burn what little energy their bodies can still produce. After what feels like an hour, the hits space out. One tap, nothing. 10 breaths, another tap, a dragging scrape. Silence. I stay where I am, pistol still trained on the door, until my hand cramps. Only then do I lower it slowly and re-engage the safety. The storm finally passes after midnight. The swell eases. The creaks quiet down. My whole body feels weak now, not just tired. That shotgun I found earlier in my first outline of this space remains on my to-find list. I still have not located it. I decide I will do that first thing once light returns. When dawn light filters through the lounge windows again, I move the barricade just enough to slip through, then slide it back in place behind me. The stairwell below smells different now. There is a fresh, sour note in the air, undercut with the stale dust of abandoned carpets. I step down slowly, machete ready in one hand, pistol loose in the other. On the landing, I see the source of some of the new smell. 2 infected lie crumpled against the door, one with most of its skull flattened from my blind shot, the other with a neat hole through the upper chest. Neither moves. Their fingers are scraped raw from slamming the door. I nudge each with my boot to be sure. No reaction. I swallow once, then step over them. Further down the corridor, a cabin door stands open where it was closed before. The frame is splintered at the latch. A trail of scuff marks leads out of it and along the wall. I follow the trail with my eyes and see 3 more infected further down, clustered near another door, heads bowed against it, hands pawing at the wood. This is where the machete earns its place. Firearms are loud. I already used them once. Using them again in enclosed hallways will ring my skull and wake more infected in other parts of the ship. So I adjust my grip and move toward the small cluster in a slow, controlled walk. The closest infected wears a Ferry staff vest, the kind worn by deck crew. His skin is grey and tight over his skull. His jaw hangs crooked. I step closer until his shoulder is almost within reach. Then I plant my foot and swing the machete in a short, sharp arc at the side of his neck. The impact is ugly and direct. I feel the resistance, then a give. The body drops sideways in a heap, legs kicking once. The other 2 turn, drawn by motion and sound. I do not give myself time to think about who they were. I move in again, keeping the blade line short so it does not catch on the walls, striking under the jaw, above the collar. I aim for the areas I know will disrupt the small remaining control in their limbs. In less than a minute, all 3 are on the floor. My arms burn from the effort. The machete is smeared, and the hallway stinks sharply now. I step back, breathing through my mouth, and wipe the blade on the uniforms before moving on. I count the bodies and do a quick mental tally. That is 5 from this floater nest. There are likely more still inside the cabins. I am not clearing them all today. That would be a death wish. Instead, I mark the broken doors with crosses and move back toward the stairwell that leads down to the lower vehicle deck. The lower deck is darker and colder. When I open the door, the air that comes out is damp and carries the smell of seawater and oil. Emergency lights glow faintly here too, but fewer of them. Shadows fill the spaces between support beams. I hear the drip of water somewhere deeper in. I shine the flashlight in a slow arc. Rust streaks across the floor where water pooled and dried. A few cars sit near the loading ramp, all empty, doors open. The ramp itself is cracked open a few feet, enough for water to leak in when waves hit at the right angle. This must be how some of the drifters got in. I step down and let my eyes adjust. This place is wide. There are many blind spots. I do not like that. I pick a route that keeps my back to solid walls as much as possible and move toward the racks where safety gear hangs. That is where emergency weapons often sit too. Halfway there, a shape stirs under a car on the left. A hand slides out, fingers clawing against metal. An infected drags itself from under the chassis, legs tangled in something, ankle twisted in a cable. It snarls, eyes locking on me, and pulls itself forward with raw determination. I step back and let it come, then plant my foot on its shoulder and drive the machete down into the back of its neck. The motion is direct, more controlled than my earlier swings. The body spasms, and then slumps. I name this type in my head too. Crawlers. The ones who lost enough limb function to get stuck low but keep moving with arms. Drifters, stumblers, cabin quiet, wake-ups, crawlers. Names organize the chaos. Without that, everything blurs together into a single mass of threat, and I freeze. At the far wall I find the safety gear rack, life jackets, a flare gun with 2 flares left, coils of rope. Hanging near the bottom is what I had hoped to find, a short-barreled shotgun, the kind used for close security in tight spaces. It hangs in a bracket, safety strap still clipped, barrel pointed at the floor. There is someone sitting beneath it. At first I think it is another infected. Then I see the dried dark fan on the wall behind his head and the clean hole in the front. He did not turn. He made sure of that. His fingers still rest near the barrel. The smell around him is stronger than in the rest of the deck. I stand there for a moment and straighten my shoulders. Then I kneel, avoiding the worst of the spill, and pry his hand from the shotgun. The weapon comes free. The safety is on. The magazine tube feels half full. I check the chamber. 1 shell rests there, ready. I carefully unload that one and pocket it, then load it again properly after inspecting the round. No corrosion. "Thank you," I say to the man quietly. I mean it. His choice left me a tool that might keep me alive. There is no easy way to honor that beyond not wasting it. With the shotgun slung on a strap over my shoulder, machete on my belt, pistol at my back, I feel almost overarmed. A stupid part of my brain tries to whisper that I am a hero now, geared up, ready to clear the ship alone. I shut that thought down fast. I have seen what happens to people who start to think the world works on bravery alone. The world now works on preparation, timing, and a lot of ugly choices, not on courage speeches. The next few days settle into a routine, as much of a routine as a man alone on a half-infested ferry can have. Each morning I check our position from the bridge, nudge Katarina a little farther along the coast or back out as needed, watching for rocks and suspicious plumes of smoke. Each afternoon I clear one small section further, either a series of cabins or a slice of lower deck. Each evening I raid a handful of suitcases and backpacks for food, water, clothing, batteries, or anything that might turn into a tool. I talk a lot in those days. To myself, to the ferry, to the infected sometimes, right before I put one down. Not respectful speeches. Short lines, half jokes, bits of dialogue from plays I never got to perform for a real crowd. I catch myself staging scenes in my head, where I walk onto the bridge in a clean uniform and deliver some dramatic line as the cameras roll. Then, I knock my shoulder into a door frame or slip on a plastic cup and remind myself where I am. I give the infected I see repeat roles in my mind. The deckhand I killed near the cabin door becomes crewman 1, in a scene where I am trying to convince him to let people into a lifeboat. The woman in the torn business suit on the lower deck becomes passenger 3, in a monologue about missed chances. The names and numbers make it easier to swing the machete without imagining full biographies. At the same time, pretending I am rehearsing gives a shape to my actions that makes sense to me. I never say any of that out loud, because if someone heard only that, they would think I had lost my mind. I know I have not. I still plan. I still weigh risk. I still sleep with one eye open. That is sanity enough for now. I stay alone because there is no one else here. That is the simple reason. The longer reason is that when my last group fell apart, there was no big fight or betrayal, just a series of small splits. One woman could not stand another's voice anymore. 2 men argued over whether to waste fuel on a generator for one night of normal light. Someone left during a food run and did not come back. Another stayed behind at a house because she said she needed one more day there. The rest of us moved on and never saw her again. I was the one always saying, we should stay together, we should plan, but I never got loud about it. I hated conflict, so people just peeled away and I let them. That was the last lesson I got before the group was gone. Indecision and silence are their own kind of choice. Now I am on this ferry because I decided to act, finally, but by then everyone else was already gone. Food and water stretch further than I expected. There are more bottles tucked into bags than I would have guessed. Some people brought full cases of water and left them stacked near the loading doors. Most of the actual kitchen stock is spoiled or gone, but dry goods survive. Rice, noodles, a few tins of beans that smell fine once opened. I ration carefully. 1 solid meal a day, small snack before sleep. My stomach complains for more, but my head does the math and wins. Water is trickier. The sealed bottles will run out. The ferry has tanks, but I do not trust what is in them after months of stagnation. So on calm days, I set up tarps and pans on the upper deck to catch rain and dew. The system is rough and slow, but it adds a bit to my supply. I also learned to use the small portable filter I found in a hiker's backpack, drawing small amounts of seawater, letting it stand, then filtering it. The taste is never great, but it is enough to keep me from drying out. As I work, I keep an eye on the horizon. A few times I see distant smoke columns that make me steer away. Once, I spot a small fishing boat with 2 figures on it, both hunched over something in the bottom of the boat. I back away slowly with the engines barely ticking, not sure if they are alive, dead, or something worse. I am not in a state to save anyone. I am barely keeping myself going. That realization hurts more than I admit, but it is the plain truth. Zombies on the ferry settle into their roles. The remaining cabin quiet stay mostly sealed behind doors that held through the storm. I can hear them sometimes at night, a soft thump or a weak moan, but they do not break through if I stay quiet. The lower deck stumblers patrol in slow, pointless loops among the cars. I give them wide berth unless I am in the mood and condition to clear one. Drifters keep bumping the hull at odd hours, hollow thuds that travel through the water into the metal. I imagine them turning slowly under the surface, drawn to the vibration of the ferry. I invent one more category for myself after a while. Slappers. These are the ones that do not move much but hit any sound source near them, like the one that tapped the cabin wall over and over. They are dangerous in another way. They serve as living alarms for others. I avoid them if I can. If I cannot, I take them out from behind and make sure they do not get a chance to send their signals. Weeks blur. I stop counting days. My beard grows out. My clothes stay mostly the same, washed in buckets of collected rainwater and seawater when I can, dried over chairs. Sleep comes in broken blocks. Nightmares visit, but I push them away with small spoken lines from plays that still hang in my head. It is strange how those scripted words outlasted so many other memories. Then the day comes when Katarina starts to die for real. It starts with a grinding sound that is not normal. I am on the bridge, adjusting our course around a cluster of rocks marked on an old chart. The engines hum low. The rudder responds in its usual one-sided way. I am murmuring to myself about angles and drift. Then, the hull shudders in a rough way that sends me off balance. There is a long scraping noise under the floor, followed by a heavy, dull jolt. The kind of sensation that means the bottom of the ferry touched something solid. The whole vessel tilts a few degrees to one side, then stops. The engines keep turning, but the forward motion feels wrong, more sluggish. My stomach goes cold. I cut the throttle and kill the engines. The scraping sound stops. The tilt remains. I look out the windows. To the port side, the water seems closer to the rail than before. To starboard, I see a line of dark shapes under the water, close enough that I can make out the tops of rocks breaking the surface in low waves. We have run aground. Not fully, not with the nose stuck in the sand like some old beach wreck, but enough that the hull kissed the bottom in shallow water. I can feel it in the small angle of every step I take. The deck slopes. "Come on," I say softly. "Not yet." I go down to the lower deck to confirm. The air there is cooler than above. I find new water pooling near one section of the hull, seeping in through a crack that was not there before. It is not a full breach, not a massive hole, but a slow leak. Drips fall in a steady rhythm, forming a shallow spreading pool. I kneel and touch the rising water with my fingertips. It is cold and clear for now. That will not last. As the hull shifts and wears against the rocks, more cracks will form. The lower levels will flood. Infected down here will either drown or push upward, seeking any higher space. Either way, this ferry will not stay a home for me much longer. I stand up and walk the length of the deck, testing the slope. Cars lean a little toward port. Loose items roll slowly in that direction. A stumbler near the ramp slips and falls, then struggles to stand again as the tilt throws off its balance. I dispatch it with one clean swing and move back toward the stairs. Back in the lounge, the angle is noticeable but not yet dangerous. Cups slide a bit on tables. Water in a bottle rests at a slant. I pace the room thinking. I can try to power the engines again and wrench us off the rocks, but with the rudder only turning one way and the hull already damaged, I could make the breach worse. Or I could accept that Katarina has carried me as far as she can and plan an exit. The old me would stand here for hours, frozen in indecision. The man from before the collapse would worry about making the wrong move and end up making none. This version of me has enough scars to know that stalling is the fastest route to failure. So I give myself a time limit. I have one more day on this ferry. I will use that day to reinforce the barricades for as long as I can, gather what I can carry, and say a proper goodbye. Then I leave before the lower deck turns into a cold grave and pushes everything upward. The next hours are messy and busy. I empty my pack onto one of the lounge tables and sort supplies into piles. Food stack, water stack, medicine stack, tool stack, clothes stack. I lay out the small inflatable life raft I found in a storage closet early on and inspect it for holes, rechecking every seam with my fingers. It holds air. That is one stroke of luck. I patch small scuffs with tape anyway. I force myself to be ruthless. I would like to take every useful object on this ferry, but my back and the small raft will not allow that. So I weigh each item in my hands. The extra flashlight wins a spot. The notebook with ship notes and a few blank pages comes along. The fashion sketches stay. The stuffed toy I almost kept as a reminder goes back into the bag. It hurts to leave it, but I imagine some tired kid from before the outbreak clutching it, and I know it does not belong with a middle-aged man rowing toward another unknown shoreline. I load the shotgun with every remaining shell I have. I count the pistol rounds twice and slip them back into the magazine. The machete rests in a makeshift sheath at my belt, edge sharpened earlier with a kitchen stone. I am armed in a way that would have made me uneasy in the old world. Now it just feels like a seatbelt in a car. While I work, the ship continues to settle. The tilt deepens a little more every hour, A bottle left on a table without a lip will slide off and roll toward the lower side. The lower deck water rises ankle depth in places. I avoid going back there after I confirm that the leak is growing. One glimpse of rising grey water lapping at the tires is enough to lock in the decision. Infected feel the change too. The floor slope throws off their shambling patterns. I hear more thumps behind doors as they lose their footing and slam into walls. Two break free near mid-deck and wander into a corridor I had previously marked as medium risk. I intercept them at a junction, where the tilt causes them to lean heavily toward one side. It gives me an advantage. Their balance is ruined. Mine is not perfect either, but I know how to brace. I plant my foot on the upper side, swing on the downward arc, and use gravity in my favor. Their bodies roll once and slide into a heap near the wall. As I step back from that little fight, breath rough, my shirt damp with sweat, I realize something simple and raw. I am going to miss this ship, this tilted, leaking, half-haunted shell with its stale air and broken glass and stinking corridors. I am going to miss the way the lounge feels at sunrise when the water is calm and the light cuts across the stained carpet. I am going to miss having walls between me and the wandering dead. It is a strange kind of attachment, but it is real. This big metal thing gave me time. Time to rest. Time to heal from old cuts. Time to eat meals without looking over my shoulder every second. Time to talk to my own head without someone else's panic crashing in. In a world that does not give out many favors now, that is a lot. Late in the day, with my pack loaded and the raft ready near one of the side exits, I return to the bridge one last time. The tilt is obvious here too now. I have to plant my feet wide to stay steady. The broken window from the rifle shot still gapes on one side, a reminder that the land is no safer than the sea. I sit in the captain's chair and rest my hands on the wheel. I run my fingers over the faded grips. I know that if I turn the key now and slam the throttle, I might shake us off the rocks, or I might rip the hull further and sink Katarina faster. There is a part of me that wants to try, just to see if we can get free together. Then, the practical part of my brain kicks in and counts remaining daylight, water level, raft stability, and the fact that there is no second ferry waiting if this one goes under. So I do something else instead. I clear my throat and stand. I place one hand on the wheel, one on the console where old sticky notes still cling, and I speak. Not to an audience in a theater, not to a camera crew, but to an empty bridge and the humming quiet of a dying ship. Katarina, I say, you did more for me than most people did in the last few months. You gave me water and cover and somewhere to sleep without someone breathing down my neck. You let me rehearse my stupid speeches. You let me pretend I was the person I wanted to be for a few minutes here and there, instead of the one who froze on a loading dock while the truck drove away. My voice comes out rough. I keep going, because if I stop now, it will feel unfinished, and I cannot stand unfinished things anymore. I know you are just steel and wiring and chipped paint, I say, but right now, you are more home than any street or house out there. I am sorry I cannot fix your rudder. I am sorry I grounded you here. I am sorry I have to walk away. You kept me alive. That matters. So thank you. I rest my palm flat on the console for a second, then step back. Tears do not come. I went through that phase earlier in this whole mess, and whatever reservoir fed it ran dry somewhere around the third time I bandaged my own arm with a torn shirt while hiding in a laundromat. What I feel now is more like a solid, heavy knot of respect sitting in my chest. I take one last look out the windows. The water glints under a pale late-day sun. Far in the distance, the same strip of land waits, indifferent. No plumes of smoke right now. No visible groups moving on the beach. Somewhere beyond those hills, maybe someone still runs a small camp with a hand-cranked radio. Somewhere, someone is still arguing about whether to move or stay. I will add myself to that wandering map soon enough. I walk down from the bridge, past the lounge that now looks almost neat with its sorted piles and strapped barriers, past the cabin corridor where a few doors still rattle with dull thumps from trapped infected. I pause at one door where the sound is weaker than the others. For a second, I consider opening it, seeing who or what is inside, giving whatever is in there a quick end. Then I picture the rush of air, the lunge of hands, the fight in a tight space with floors at a slant and walls ready to take my balance away. I step back instead. I cannot save everyone, and I cannot end every cursed thing. I can only not add my own body to the rotting pile. At the side deck, the tilt is strongest. The rail on the lower side is closer to the water now. Waves slap against the hull with more force. I unroll the small raft and clip it to a lowering line. My pack goes in first, then the shotgun and machete. The pistol stays at my waist. I tie everything down tight. I double-check the knots. I glance once over my shoulder, back into the interior. It is dim already. Emergency lights flicker in places as whatever charge they had fades. Shadows gather near the stairwell. A faint thump echoes from somewhere deeper. The ship feels tired. "All right," I say quietly, speaking to the doorway, to the ship, to my own memory. "This is where we part." I lower the raft with one hand on the rope, controlling its descent. It hits the water with a soft splash and bobs. The drifters down there take notice, turning slowly toward the new motion. I count 2 near the hull, both waterlogged, movement sluggish. I wait until the raft drifts a bit away from their reach, then wrap the rope around the cleat and brace myself on the slick deck. Climbing down the ladder this time is different from the day I arrived. Then I was going upward towards something unknown that felt dangerous and promising. Now I am going downward, away from something that became familiar and dangerous and still promising in its own way. My arms quiver with the effort. The shotgun bumps against my back as I descend. My boots find each rung carefully. Near the bottom, one of the drifters brushes a hand against the ladder and swipes at my boot. I jerk my leg up, then swing it down into the side of its face, using my weight to knock it sideways. The body spins in the water, arms flailing for something to grip, then floats on. I drop the last few feet into the raft and nearly fall over as it rocks. I catch myself on the side and sit, breathing out in a long, rushed exhale. Salt water splashes my pants. The ferry looms over me now, tilted, metal groaning softly as pressure shifts along the hull. I pull out the small paddle and start to row. Short strokes, controlled, angled to pull me away from the hull without drifting straight into the drifters. The rope above goes taut. I untie it with a quick jerk and let it drop into the water. The gap between Katarina and me widens with each stroke. I stop once I am at a safe distance and turn the raft to face the ferry. For a moment I just sit there, paddle resting across my knees, and study the shape of the ship that was my home for this short piece of the end of the world. The tilt is clear even from here. The bow rides a little higher. The lower side dips closer to the water. Somewhere inside, infected still knock around in their sealed boxes, unaware that the room around them is sinking inch by inch. My throat feels tight again. Not from fear this time, from farewell. "Goodbye, Katarina," I say into the open air. "Thank you." The words carry away on the breeze and disappear. No captain answers on a speaker. No horn blows. The ferry gives no sign that it heard me. It just sits there, a dead weight on the rocks, slowly losing the fight with gravity and water. I grip the paddle again and turn my raft toward the distant line of land. Somewhere ahead, more trouble waits. More infected with their blank eyes and broken walks. More people with short tempers and guns and ration lines. More nights without walls, if I cannot find another solid shell to rest in. I am not a hero. I am not a soldier. I am a tired warehouse worker who wanted to be an actor and ended up giving monologues to an empty ferry and a handful of the undead. I do not know if that is funny or sad or both. What I do know is that I am still here, paddle in hand, moving, choosing, one small motion at a time. The raft rises and falls on small waves as I set a steady rhythm. Behind me, Katarina fades slowly into the haze where sea meets sky. I do not look back again after that. Not because I do not care, but because if I keep turning around, I will never reach whatever waits on the other side. And that's where we'll stop for now. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and tell me how the story hit you, what moments worked, what didn't, and what you'd want to hear next. And a big thank you to everyone supporting the channel, especially with extra membership: Carlos Herrera, Dominique Johnson, The Great Anywho, Jade Allah, Madam Midnight, Deborah Powell, William Blackwell, TJR, Baby Doll. You keep this project alive. Until next time, Survivor. Jack's Nightmares signing off.